childhood vaccines cause autism? As a man who's done so much in the effort to educate people, what's the definitive answer?
There is no definitive answer, but we have not been able to determine that autism is caused by vaccines. There's no direct tie to autism, but there is $100 million a year that the vaccine court pays out to people from damages with vaccines, not specifically autism, but a lot of them. So there's always going to be an issue with vaccines because all vaccines are the same and all people receiving them are different.
It is one of those words parents everywhere fear hearing when a doctor talks to them about their child. Autism, the disorder for which there is no cure, can and often does impact the lives of those afflicted and their families, tens of millions around the world. And words no one wants to hear. The affliction is getting worse, not better. A CDC study in March of 2014 found that the prevalence of autism had doubled in only 10 years. 1 in every 68 births, almost 1 in every 54 boys. Alarming numbers that beg the question, especially in April, National Autism Month. What's being done to bring this affliction under control? Our guest is a mother of 3 boys who all suffer a variety of issues related to autism, author of The Unprescription for Autism, a natural approach for a calmer, happier, and more focused child. Welcome Dr. Janet Lintala to the Hardline. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us, and these numbers are just scary. When you look at them and you see the increase in a 10-year period, the simple question then, what's causing it?
I think it's a variety of issues. One, we're beginning to realize that autism has always been with us to some degree. There is a genetic component. There's not an autism gene per se. They think there's hundreds of genes involved, and they're being influenced by our environment. And as you know, we're in the industrial age, so we have a lot more chemicals and triggers available. And I'm not talking about DNA mutations, changes like that, but the environment can turn genes on and off and change the function that they're meant for. And that can change our function and our behavior and our health. And so it's a combination of genetics, it's a combination of environmental triggers, the timing when that trigger occurred in the womb or at a very early age or sometimes even preconception. And I think we have better diagnosis now. So I do think there's a little more autism among us, but I think we have better diagnosis too. So it's a combination of factors.
Aren't we talking about, too, here, cells that simply do things, minor things that happen in the body, a lot like cancer, the way things suddenly get triggered in the body? And I bring this up because in Science Daily, they talked about a link between prodigy and autism, saying there is a resilience of the gene, or the genes hold back the deficits associated with autism. So seeing that link is so close here, aren't we looking at a lot more research that needs to be done in finding out what that trigger is? Not necessarily what happens 100 years ago, but what's triggering now?
Right, and really the research is pointing to there's lots of triggers, and it does seem to be chemical or toxic in nature. And again, combined with that person's particular genetic package and the timing of the trigger.
So are we looking then, if I can interrupt you for a second, then you mentioned genetics again. Are we not looking then at the need for some sort of a pre-test here to be able to decipher if indeed 2 people getting together, the genetics are involved and there is a possibility that they will trigger?
I think right now we're not there yet because it's too complex. There's too many variables. There's hundreds of genes involved, they think, and hundreds of triggers, and then you combine that with 2 people and what their combination might come up with, and right now I don't think it's predictive, but also we're kind of backing away from the thought that maybe autism is such a terrible thing. There's many gifts with autism. I think it's the associated health challenges or skill deficits that are the most devastating, but the autistic brain is a pretty cool thing. And
well, there's that whole thing about prodigy sitting in there as well. They're saying that it's very close to being a prodigy.
Yes, and there's many gifts. I mean, some people are profoundly intellectually impaired. It's not always a gift, but there are some with average intelligence, but some with great intellectual gifts and responsible for many scientific discoveries and innovations. And so I don't think we need to prevent or cure autism, but we need to understand it and understand the health challenges with it so that someone can have a high quality of life on the autism spectrum.
I got only 30 seconds left. Is it fair to say that to the parents, don't go for the quack remedies and don't knee-jerk?
Right. Don't panic. Get a developmental pediatrician. Find someone who understands all the emerging research on the health issues, and you can have a happy, healthy life on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, parents, don't self-diagnose, as we've read that a lot of people do when they look at this. And for God's sake, please make sure you do your research and don't just take it from the quack doctors that are out there, because there's so many of them. The book, once again, is fascinating. The Unprescription for Autism, a natural approach for a calmer, happier, and more focused child. Dr. Janet Lintala, I want to thank you so much for being here. Hopefully we can at least start to open some doors here for people, open their eyes, and start to look at what the realities are, and hopefully try to find a cure for this disease one day. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay with us, because remember the mantra here, question everything? We'll continue that next, right here on The Hardline.